So my approach in this series is looking at words that I am traditionally or had traditional knowledge familiar with, and then trying to figure out where their origins from, or their associations, or where they could have come from culturally and what significance they have. So today we're going to look at two words, Dashin and Afweshi. One word is a Shona word and the other is a Zulu word. So we're going to start off with Dashin. Dashin in the Caribbean is a food. It is a blue yam and it is a taro-like plant. In Hausa, Dashi, D-A-S-H-I, means to transplant. The Hausa people are found chiefly in northwestern Nigeria and adjacent southern Niger, numbering about 76 million people, with significant indigenized populations in Benin, Cameroon, the Ivory Coast, Chad, Sudan, the Central African Republic, Republic of the Congo, Togo, Ghana, Eritrea, Equatorial Guinea, Gabon, Senegal, and the Gambia. So there are many people who speak the Hausa language. There is another significant group next to Nigeria and Niger, which is the Fulani people. Historically, the relationship between the Hausa and the Fulani people were quite contentious during the enslavement period. Okay, the Hausa language belongs to a Chadic group of the Afro-Asiatic or Hamito-Semitic people. When you think of Hamito-Semitic people, think of the descendants of Ham and the descendants of Shem, Hamito-Shemitic. So here you have think of the Old Testament and the Bible. The Hausa language is infused with many Arabic words, however, as a result of the Islamic influence, which spread even more during the 14th century from the Kingdom of Mali. Think of the Islamic conquest when you think about the influence. The Hausa are agricultural people and they employ a crop rotation technique. So a lot of their agricultural techniques may have made their way into the Caribbean through the transatlantic slave trade. So the Hausa were also famous throughout the Middle Ages for their cloth and weaving techniques, dyeing cotton goods, leather sandals, metal locks, horse equipment, and leather working, and the export of such goods throughout the West African region as well as to North Africa. Hausa leather was erroneously known to medieval European or as Moroccan leather. This makes sense, right? That they are people with a lot of trade and skillful tradesmen, because during the Persian and the Babylonian expulsion of the people out of Jerusalem, a lot of the Semitic people migrated out, and they were notoriously known for being great craftsmen. So they migrated out of Jerusalem, and for the Semitic craftsmen, they may have come down to that part of the region. Also, they're known as blue men because of their use of indigo ties, and that is the Hausa people being known as blue men. So let us dive in a little further into this. So here we have the Hausa people being known as blue men and being associated with indigo. And when you think of the dyeing techniques, also think of Joseph and Jacob, the colorful robe that Jacob gave to Joseph, his son, which made the other 12 brothers quite angry and upset. But we move on to the idea that the blue men is also associated. Think of now of Dashin being a blue yam. Maybe not really a correlation, but we'll transition from that last idea of indigo and dyeing and those skills and Hausa into the Caribbean, and then Dashi means to transplant, and now we have the idea of Dashin, which is considered a blue yam or a taro-like plant. So let's discuss about Dashin, the taro-like plant in the Caribbean, which most likely the Hausa brought into the Caribbean for the transatlantic slave trade. An article online entitled Dashing Plants Could Be the Root of Caribbean Development, Stories About Food and Agriculture Through the Lens of Climate Change. This is written by Daphne Ewing Chow, and it is dated online the 26th of October 2020. It is found in a online magazine, Forbes magazine, and it is in the business section under food and drink. So the author explains that dashing is among a family of root crops called ground provisions in the Caribbean. Ground provisions in Saint Lucia. It's grown on many of the islands, English-speaking Caribbean islands, dating back to the early 16th century, also known as taro, blue yam food, or callaloo. This plant resembles a smaller domesticated house plant called the elephant plant. Historians say that the crop arrived to the Caribbean aboard transatlantic slave ships, along with African food culture and agroecological knowledge. The tender dashing leaves are used to make the stew called callaloo. Callaloo is the national dish of Trinidad and Tobago, but callaloo is prepared in Saint Lucia, Dominica, Grenada, St. Vincent, Martinique, and other Caribbean islands. It is immortalized in The Cosby Show as Dr. Heathcliff Huxtable's favorite food. The plant leaves is also used to wrap corn flour dough, and that is called pemi. The pemi is identical or almost like what is known in West Africa dish as fufu. Interestingly, in Hawaii, over in the Pacific, dashing, or as is known as callaloo, is it's regarded with quite reverence. Referred to as the staff of life, it is used for medicinal purposes with the belief that it has the greatest life force of all foods. Dashing is revered for its nutritional, environmental, economic, and even spiritual properties. In Saint Lucia, it is a local food, a local favorite of a lot of the people, especially in the rural areas. It is widely grown and eaten there. It grows best in waterlogged areas, usually near rivers and streams or in flood plains. There's also another interesting fact that we grow a yam matuta. It's called yam matuta. And there's a word called matuta in Shona, which means wet. Now, that matuta yam is grown during the wet season, while dasheen is best grown in wet, waterlogged areas. Just a tidbit fact about how you have different languages finding its way. So yam matuta is yam grown in Saint Lucia, and matota in Shona means wet. So here you have some evidence of the Hausa influence in the Caribbean, the agricultural practices, the foods, for example, dumplings, porridge, okra, pumpkin. These are synonymous with Caribbean meals as well, and also in African American foods, okra and all those foods. The next word that we're going to look at is a word called Afweshi. Afweshi in Saint Lucia means to take a cleansing. In Saint Lucia they also call it a cooling. Cleansing meaning to cleanse your intestinal and your digestive system, or to clean your blood out. That's how they refer to it. Some of the plants that can be used to do a cleansing or an afweshi would be like aloe vera or also green papaya. All these things are soaked in water and drank for 5 to 7 days, and that is called taking a cooling or an afweshi. In Zulu, afweshi means fresh. Quite interesting. So you have afweshi in the Caribbean, a cooling, and then you have afweshi in Zulu language, which means fresh. So the Zulu language are the #1 group in South Africa, and they are an Ngoni ethnic group native to South Africa. The Zulu people are the largest ethnic group there, and they are from KwaZulu-Natal, in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. They originated from the Ngoni communities who took part in the Bantu migrations over a millennia ago. Shaka is probably the most famous of the Zulu people in his military tactics and organization against the British and colonizations. Zulus take pride in the ceremonies such as Malanga or reed dance. Reed dancing and masquerading is also quite synonymous with carnival and masquerading in the Caribbean. So then you have some Zulu influence here. So Zulu is the most widely spoken language in South Africa. There is an official language. More than half of the South African populations are able to understand it. Another significant part of Zulu culture would be stick fighting. Stick fighting is also found in the Caribbean, and it is something that was probably brought across from the Zulu culture into the Caribbean on the slave ships and from the people that were enslaved. So we looked at Afweshi and we looked at Dashi. One word is Hausa based and the other word is Zulu based. We also put in a Shona word in there, which is Matuta, and from the Yam Matuta. So if you like the content, hit the like button, don't forget to subscribe, and we will see you